And go.
Good evening and welcome to the BrainTrust, a roundtable brainstorming session of problem solving in a modern world. Today's challenge is this: what can we do to improve relationships between police and citizens? Joining me to discuss this are Aspie, Danny Duchamp, Deg Kyle, Chairview, and potentially more as we go on. Here on the Brain Trust, we believe that the more ideas that you listen to, the more likely you are to hear a good one. So, starting us out on that note, does anybody have anything to toss into the idea pool of what should we do?
When you speak of the sort of bad relations between police departments and their citizens, I think this is obviously we're eventually going to be talking about relations between the police departments and the black community, because usually in this in like areas such as of like middle class white suburbs, there isn't a whole lot of problems between the police and its citizens. However, most of the controversy stems from sort of relations between black citizens and the police departments. And you have to take into account that most black neighborhoods in America usually are very plagued by high rates of crime, and when you have high rates of crime in an area, the police department who sort of patrol those areas are going to be under higher amounts of stress, and this tends to make people very trigger happy. I mean, I don't believe that this whole narrative about cops being racist or the reason why why cops shoot black people is due to some sort of of their tactics being based on tactics being used by the slave patrols. That's all bunk. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But I think that the one way that we could fix the sort of obviously one big obvious way to fix sort of relations between the black community and the sort of police departments is well, first off, have less crime, but I think that's kind of a bit of a under thing to say. I'm kind of just spouting off my head right now.
Aspie.
Yeah.
Let's hear. Does somebody want to chime in here?
Yeah. I wanted to say that we have to keep in mind here that we're talking about relations not just between the black community, but everybody.
Police in general, I understand.
As far as the case you're talking about, the problem is that it's not just black people getting shot by white cops. Black people have been shot by black cops. White people have been shot by white cops.
I understand. I wasn't denying that. I was just saying that I was just pointing out that's where the conversation will probably eventually go.
Yeah,
and Danny, you're from the UK.
Yeah,
so I would really love your perspective.
Well, first of all, I was prepared for this to be instantly a discussion about American police specifically, and that's fine. I mean, what
do you think about our police departments from your
honestly, British perspective would be
New Zealand. Hold up, New Zealand.
Oh, New Zealand. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but in any case, in New Zealand, we don't have a significant amount of issues with our police, not to the extent that you guys do over there. And on the little factual claim there that Hannah pointed out, this is entirely an issue in the black community, really. I'm not saying that it's more likely that cops will shoot black people at all. On an interaction by interaction basis, it actually seems that cops are more willing to shoot white people if you start looking at studies. But that's kind of irrelevant because the point is the public image of cops. And certainly the portion of the population in the US which is the most pissed off with the police force are the black people who think that the cops are just out there to shoot black people. So if that's the problem you're trying to deal with, you're not going to fix that by changing the reality. You're not going to be able to reform the police force in such a way that it's going to fix the problem, because the problem isn't how the police force is behaving. It's the false beliefs people have about them being racist. So it's a public information issue.
I was going to say this kind of stems off the sort of Ferguson narrative, because, I mean, we all know that the evidence shows that Darren Wilson isn't pretty much an innocent man. He defended himself against a guy who was essentially trying to, attack him. That Michael Brown was essentially trying to attack him. And no matter how much evidence came out, the I hate to use this word, grievance industry just came out and denied it all, and still run with this narrative of a black man being shot by a white cop is a very strong narrative, and they're just not willing to let it go. They're willing to deny reality to keep this up. And I just think it just throws fuel onto the fire. And I'm not going to don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist here, but I think a lot of people in the civil rights industry are trying to use this to their advantage because they don't want to be, irrelevant.
Mm.
Right. There are definitely a lot of people who benefit from the idea that black people are oppressed by the police, even if that's not the case, which I don't see any evidence that it is over in the US or, for that matter, any Western country. But there are a lot of people who benefit from that idea. So if you want to try to improve the police's image, again, it's not going to be anything to do with changing how the police operate. I think there's a lot wrong with how the police operate in the US, but that's not changing their public image. It's the things they aren't actually doing that people are pissed off about, right? So it's not going to be anything you can do with the police. Is there something like, so, okay, the people who are making a living off of talking about how racist cops are, right? Can you have an equivalent counterbalance to that? Could someone make a living off of talking about how actually cops aren't that racist, right? Can you have something, can you have a set of a community of activists who push back in the opposite direction?
Yeah.
Here's
You can,
the
but they
problem.
won't be as successful. They won't be that successful, though.
Well, no, here's the
sadly.
problem. If you have a group of people coming back and saying, like, there is a group pushing back, that would be the Blue Lives Matter people who are pushing back against the Black Lives Matter people. But if a group of white people were trying to stand up for white cops and saying, hey, no, they're not racist, blah, 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 you would be called a racist.
Yeah.
You know, that's the problem.
For the record, I am the official Blue Lives Matter spokesperson here.
Really?
So what is the line of Blue Lives Matter? Is it directly just cops aren't racist, and so they shouldn't be treated as such? Or is it more actually the larger problem is cops getting shot by the people they're trying to arrest as opposed to the other way around?
Well, think about it like this. If you're a police officer, every morning you get up and you put a target on your chest. And you do this so that you can protect your community. And half of your community hates you for it, and the other half is grateful.
Right.
I mean, on a day-to-day basis, can you not imagine this doing some sort of massive psychological number on you?
Oh, yeah. And they're not trained to deal with it like they should.
It's not. I can't imagine it would be fun to be a police officer. In a normal conversation, in normal circumstances, in a sane world, I would be probably on the more anti-cop side of this discussion, because I think there's a lot wrong with how police comport themselves, how they're protected.
Yeah.
I saw a story, I think it came out just yesterday, about a dude who he shot a cop who was breaking into his house, and he's got 13.5 years for it. And the justification the cop had for coming to his house was simply that they had a picture of him with some drugs and cash and guns, right? They had a picture of him. And the cop, he just didn't realize it was a cop when the guy broke in. And so he was just defending himself from an intruder.
Did the cop even have a warrant?
I don't believe the cop did have a warrant, but to be honest, either way, if the cop is breaking into your house, then warrant or not, he shouldn't be allowed to do that.
Yeah, he's breaking the law.
My point is, probably, but the point is that even in a normal world, I would be mostly talking about that stuff, right? I would be saying, hey, there's a lot of problems with how the police operate. If people don't like them, maybe that's justified and we should fix how the police work. But we don't live in that world, right? We live in a world where the things people are pissed off about are things that the cops aren't even doing, right? And I think that the first order of business has to be to focus on correcting the public information, right? So to be honest, I think how can you improve the police's public image is entirely how can you explain to people that the cops are not shooting black people indiscriminately, because just that's factually wrong and everyone believes it.
Yeah.
Well, I believe you can start by pointing out.
I tried finding that on the news. I couldn't find it.
The police aren't shooting black people indiscriminately.
Right, thanks.
They aren't. In all reality, cops are more likely to shoot a white person than they are a black person. But statistics aside, police officers are put in a unique position where the public hates them for doing their job, but they demand that they do their job.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where's the cop to draw the line? If you have politicians getting elected based on, oh, I increased arrests and detainments by, say, 30% over the course of my administration, and I have this number because I demanded that the police arrest and detain more people. I didn't get blamed because more people got arrested and detained. The police did. They are the fall guys. On the meantime, I can use this information to get myself reelected. You know, why are we as citizens electing politicians who are saying, I'm tough on crime? Why not say, I'm fair with crime?
Yeah.
I'm not going to elect you if you say I'm tough on crime. I don't want to hear tough on crime.
Yeah, it's a meaningless platitude at this point.
Yeah. Why not say I'm fair with crime? If you actually commit a crime and we find you guilty, yeah, we're going to punish you. But
actually, it wasn't just one person, it was a whole SWAT team. It was a SWAT team that came into his house.
But one dude got shot. He didn't shoot the entire SWAT team.
Of course.
Once again, we're here for creative, constructive ideas. And I know police have done bad things. I know there are some bad apples. Let's exclude that from this discussion and think about relationships between the police and the citizens. How do we make this better? How do we fix this? Like, this is a problem we can't fix. Let's fix it.
Yeah.
How can you possibly fight against the enormous media empire that is, every single chance they get, pushing the narrative that cops are racist bastards who shoot blacks for no reason? Right? Like, every media outlet, with the Michael Brown thing, for example, was, you can show people from like MSNBC after the shooting where they were doing the hands up, don't shoot sign to sort of commemorate the terrible execution of Michael Brown for no good reason, right?
Yeah. And they never report when white people are shot. Or other people are shot.
Trying to grab his gun, and there's nothing wrong with it. So how could I don't think that. So a lot of people talk about like the public image of the police, where like you want to get relationships between the police and the community they're policing. That stuff does help. That's all good. But order number one should be fighting the giant media empire who's specifically trying to paint the cops as racist.
It's almost as if you need some sort of almost semi-demagogic figure spouting out the words fake news at these kind of people.
Trump's probably helping. Gotta be honest.
Yeah, true. But also another thing is you're trying to fix police relations with people who, in the case of Ferguson, are basically delusional when it comes to what happened with Michael Brown and whatnot. They don't want to know the reality that maybe the reason why the relations with the police are so bad is because they're bad. It's because they don't. Maybe they just don't like authority. Maybe they just don't. Maybe because they don't want them to be good. Maybe they don't want the relations to be good. So they just kind of so it just keeps getting worse and worse. Maybe I'm not saying all people. I'm not saying the whole black community in Ferguson wants bad but they've been sold a lie, and unless they can break from this delusion, I don't see with the cops. I don't see the relationship with the cops getting any better.
Well, let me ask you this: Do you honestly believe that people in this situation want to be in this situation? I mean, it's almost
I think I might have misspoke right there. I'm not saying people want to be in that situation. I think I should have said that because because they're delusional about this case, and that they in this delusion that they have is not letting it get better. That's what I probably should have said.
Right. I have an idea. Let's
hey, Rin.
Hey, Rin.
Let's welcome Rin Michels to the channel.
Rin.
By the way,
it's been a while, huh?
Yes, it's been a while since I've been on your channel. I think the last time I was on your channel, a Valiant.
Yeah, you were on, last time you were on my channel. You were talking to a Valiant. That was fun.
Oh my god, is she still around?
Valiant.
No, this was ages ago. I had a Valiant on my channel before she was famous.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
She was fun.
Yeah, a Valiant was a lot of fun.
But in any case, I don't want to derail the thing. But Rin, so you've jumped in here, and we're talking about like the public image of police. So, I don't think I recall. Are you in like a majority black area?
No, I live in a mostly, well, it's pretty much a mixed race neighborhood, but it is pretty much a white neighborhood or mixed race. Like,
all right. Well,
like my next door neighbors are, from Mexico, and pretty much most of the people are white, though.
So what I'm curious about is whether, like, the impression you get from the people you live around, do you think that the common perception is that the police are evil and racist and shoot black people for no reason?
Well, for me, I don't believe that the police are evil and racist and shit.
No, but do you think people you live around think that?
I don't know. I haven't asked them.
Okay, so you don't like...
Useful. I mean, it's kind of hearsay.
Well, the thing that I'm kind of curious about is, I suppose you wouldn't necessarily know if your neighbors think that sort of thing, unless you get in vague political discussions with your neighbors, which some people do. What I'm trying to understand is so the mainstream media in the US constantly pushes a narrative that the police shoot black people for no reason, like just because they're black. The evidence suggests that this is not the case. Why is the media pushing this? There is someone who is interested in hearing this message. Is it guilty white left-wingers? Is it black people who want to feel like they're part of a victim class? Who wants this message?
Never underestimate the value of white guilt.
I think it's because I think it's for money, because it's like they learn clickbait, white cop shoots black man, and there's like a shock value there, and because of the shock value, multiple people watch until
so
now.
So it's a media problem.
Now people don't trust the media so much anymore. Like now the trust in the media has died down. But I grew up believing that you could believe in the news, you could trust in the news. But I think that, they took advantage of people's trust in them, and they use clickbait to get more views and revenue.
They do. I think that even though when you poll people, they say they don't trust the news, despite that response, I think a lot of people at least are affected by the news that they see. If the media, when the cops shoot a white guy, they do not publicize it. When the cops shoot a black guy, they do, right? Then the media can still give the impression that the cops are only shooting black people. And so even if you don't trust the media really, I think you can still pick that impression up from them and believe that.
Yeah, like if you watch the media, like they deliberately pick stories that's where it's like white cops shoots black guys and black people. And I mean, I used to be to the left, and the reason why I used to be, I was briefly part of Black Lives Matter because I believed it until I came across vernaculars. When I came across the vernaculars and realized that the media has been lying to me, I changed my mind. But it's just like, it's like a video I saw. There's a video I saw saying that there are like 1 million redheads in the world. And what if, you report each and every time a redhead abuses their animal, like every single time, if you keep reporting it, you could have multiple stories all year long without having the same redhead twice. And it would give everybody the impression that redheads are animal abusers. And that's because unless you look at the FBI crime statistics, you don't know that actually black people shoot more white people than the other way around. Like twice as many white people die from black people than the other way around.
Right, and this is meant to be a solutions stream, not just complaining about problems. We're meant to have solutions here. So what could you actually?
I have a solution.
What is the actual solution to that media empire pushing this narrative?
Oh, and hey, Red Robot, by the way.
Optimus.
Fuck you.
Sorry.
So
I always get you too confused.
So the solution, honestly, is to praise Doug.
Well, for me,
Praise Doug.
To me, fewer people trust in the media nowadays. Like I did. I think I saw something like I think I read an article that says more people trust politicians than the media because like trust in the media is at an all.
What's the difference at this point?
That's so scary.
So let me.
The media may as well. The majority of the media may as well be an activist.
It's like choosing not to trust
of
the
the Democratic Party.
So let me ask, what points have already been covered, so that way I'm not rehashing over the same stuff due to arriving?
Have you not been following?
Oh, okay.
I just got done with the video game stream. Okay, I can't pay attention to all the stream.
Well, I'll sort of go. I want to chuck my question out there, because basically my position is that there's no point in changing what the police does. There's no point in improving outreach of any kind unless it's going to be targeting the giant media campaign to paint cops as racist, right? Because that is the reason that the majority of people who hate cops the most hate the cops. That's what you need to.
There's only so much ride-alongs and stuff. There's only so much, there was an event where kids would, go shopping for a day with police, and they were mostly minority children. And the thing is that you can do that, and that can somewhat help the relations between the police and the community. But there's only so much that can do. That's not like while it's a problem, it's not the problem.
The problem. All right. I'm going to go ahead and welcome Politipod to the stream real quick. And let me throw this at you, Danny. You kind of pointed at the media as being the main problem. Do you think that perhaps if the police were to, let's say, institute a new program where every time they pulled somebody over and they, from this point on, you get one warning. We're going to pull you over for, say, speeding. And we're going to walk up to you and we're going to ask you for your ID and all that. We're going to run it. You don't have any warrants, all right? We should be writing you a ticket. But instead, we're going to give you a little flyer. And this flyer is going to be a list of all the potential road hazards that you could have gotten: speeding, maybe failure to yield a light, all these other things, and the potential fines for them. And say, here, this is some reading for you, and I'm not going to give you a ticket. I'm going to write down that I give you this thing that says, hey, these are the most commonly broken laws on the road, and these are the fines for them. Don't break these laws. You have a nice day. You've been warned. And you do this for, say, 6 or 8 months, where you're just handing out, instead of issuing tickets, except for repeat offenders, you're handing out this flyer that says, we could have given you a ticket. It could have cost you this much, but it's not going to, because, honestly, we just want to stop the speeding minute. We want to stop this kind of reckless behavior. On that level, do you think that could have an impact on the public?
No,
I don't. Well, the question was directed at me, I think. And my answer was no, I don't. I think that sort of initiative could absolutely have an effect on someone like me, who is... so my position on cops, I'm very libertarian. I don't like the fact that the cops are essentially a monopoly provider. I think that there is a market solution for that sort of thing. I don't like a lot of the behavior that the cops do. I don't like how they get protected when they do things that are wrong, to extents that, like that the guy by the way, I put the link to this guy in the side here, who was
we'll throw that.
Yeah, it was a no-knock raid, and he defended himself by shooting this intruder. It turned out to be a cop, so he gets 13.5 years. Those sorts of things. There are a lot of things I don't like about cops, and your sort of approach there is definitely a good way to reach people like me, who might have some anti-cop positions, but nonetheless is interested in reality.
Actually, somebody said it's a really
mostly hate. This is the most important point. The people who mostly hate cops will not be affected by a change in police behavior, because they are not looking at police behavior in the first place. You can change your behavior all you want. Cops could be perfect angels, and it won't matter, because that is not what is making the people who are anti-cop become anti-cop. They are anti-cop because the media is telling them they kill a lot of black people for no reason.
I'm inclined to agree at that point, because of the fact is, if you go in with a certain mentality as a whole over generalization, a flyer isn't going to do it.
Exactly.
Not to mention, you pull someone over. Guess what? They got meth in a car. Oh, don't worry about it. Here's a flyer.
No. That's a different situation.
Right, but I mean, in the event
the person's acting twitchy, and you check them and you find meth. I'm sorry, you're not getting a flyer. You're getting arrested, and you deserve it.
Well, you fucking bigot! How dare you?
No. I'm sorry. If you're a meth head, jail might be the best thing for you.
You're such a bigot.
Well,
I'm a realist.
I don't think your idea would work because cops already give warnings. Like when I got caught speeding, I didn't get a ticket. I did get a warning. It's just that, pretty much everybody speeds anyway. Like if you go on a highway, it's kind of like you're not the only one speeding. You are one of many people going way over the speed limit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just that, like when one person gets in trouble with a cop, everybody suddenly knows to slow down, and then everybody please far back up again.
So then let me ask. So in the event, like say a lot of cars are in daylight, they're speeding. They're obviously going over the speed limit, but the flow of traffic is not being hindered. What then? Because obviously the cops are going to have someone to pinpoint to pull over.
I don't know where you guys live, but I've been issued a speeding ticket before. And I admit I was justly given it. I was doing 85 and 65, and the rate of traffic was 70. In Georgia, where I am, they actually have a section on the ticket that says, what is the common rate of traffic? And the police has to put down not the speed limit, but the common rate of traffic. And if the common rate of traffic is 70 and 65 and you're doing 72, the judge is going to throw that out every time.
Yeah.
And police don't write those tickets.
True. And I would like to say that I asked a cop about this. It's like, listen, most people do go over the speed limit. Like, at what point are you going to pull people over? And the cop said, we have usually a sort of 5 miles per hour over rule, to where if you're going more than 5 miles per hour over, we will probably pull you over. If you're going, they're not looking for the guy who's late to his child's birthday party or something. That's going 72 and a 65. That's just stupid. But if they're looking for the guy, they're looking for the guy on meth who's going 90, okay, down the road.
Could kill people.
I don't know what type of meth head you guys have.
Lanes, you're looking for that guy.
Look, meth.
Our meth heads don't drive. They walk everywhere. Anyways, what was the question we're supposed to answer? How do we solve the relationship between cops and the people?
We got off track. Sorry.
Basically, improving police image. Yes.
Okay. So here's my take on that. I think this is a broad question for an answer that's extremely difficult to.
That's why it's a brainstorming session.
Yeah. Well, I think you might have to change a culture first in order to do that, because
that's what I said.
Here's the point. If you're having a group of people whose music is telling them that they need to tell the police to fuck off, that the police are in jailing them unjustly, that they're killing their brothers and sisters of the same race, that they are beating them, and you have videos and stuff that back this up, I don't think you're going to be able to solve, for at least for one race, all those problems. And specifically, we're talking about the black race here, with the rap culture and their culture that they have right now. It's very difficult for any African American person in the U.S. or just black person in the U.S., sometimes the U.K. and Canada, that they even trust the police. And it's not that it's. I don't think it's unjust for them not to, considering their past with the police. But I think it's indicative of the culture that they don't trust them nowadays. But they, not saying that their past, they haven't had some, Rodney King, obviously, and then all the shootings that have happened and been publicized and all this stuff. But I think it's been blown out of proportion I agree, the media has blown it out of proportion, but their culture is also blowing it out of proportion with certain rap songs and the way that they, because people talk in groups, and their in groups are people who live near them, and that's it generates a vicious cycle of hating the police and saying that the police are horrible racist killers, and it keeps going and going and going for centuries.
Okay, well, every time you hear about it in the media, right? Every time you hear about a story in the media lately where it's a black person shot, the immediate jump is innocent black man shot by racist cop, and it's like that's not always the case. Like it would help if we could wait a little bit until some of the facts come out and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I remember there's this one guy who, when he was getting out of his car, the police, everybody thought, oh, it was a black cop. It was actually a black cop that shot him, but this black cop who shot this black guy said he did it because it was a gun. And some people said, and you could see it right laying next to him, but some people, because it was far away and it was kind of blurry, thought it was a book.
I think it's Alton Sterling what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it turned out to actually be a gun, or as Naked Ape so great said, does that look like a Berenstein's bear or a AK or not an AK-47 or a 39 or a 9mm because that does not look like a book.
Here's the thing though, he might have still had a license for that weapon. You don't know that.
I don't think he did.
It doesn't matter. Whenever you get out of a car, you're not supposed to bring a weapon out.
No, I understand. I understand that, but I'm saying at the same time, like a lot of times.
So, Tucky in the chat says, "Excuse my autism, but I'd still like to know, how does jail equal the best option for someone addicted to hard drugs?"
Let's get into that.
Right, it doesn't. That's an issue, right? The cops locking people up for isolation from the. If someone wants to be isolated from the drugs, then I mean, there can be services to allow them that. Like there's rehab and things like that.
I'm sorry, if when you're addicted to meth, you don't have the option to want to. You either have to be forced to, or you're not going to do it.
Yeah, that's completely false. That's just straight up wrong. And I know people personally who.
Let's look at this logic.
I can probably hold on. There's 20 people.
Well, I don't care how many people you can list.
Probably one.
An absolute rule is disproved by a single example. It's just basic logic. An absolute rule, like the one you just described, is disproved by a single example. So it doesn't matter how many people you can name who failed to get off.
It's not absolute. It's not. I'm not saying it's an absolute. I'm just saying you have a 98% chance of not coming back.
Okay, where'd you get that stat from?
That's just my personal experience.
Right. So I don't think you can get a specific stat to two figures.
No. Because I don't think stats in general are worth anything.
Well, okay, then maybe you throw ones out. Especially on ones
let's try not to argue.
I'm just saying meth is not something from easily.
Yeah, no, meth is something that you can get off. And look, and if you think that people need to be forced to, I disagree with you. But in any case, jail is still a bad solution. There are facilities that are designed to get people off of a drug, and their family could care about this person and want to get them put into a place like that.
But in the States, you need money or insurance to do that.
A prison does not do that very well, right? A prison is a terrible way to get someone off drugs. It's a good way to get them into dealing them. You know, repeat offense is a giant...
By the way, we really need to redo our prison reform argument here. Not argument, but brainstorm.
But aren't New Zealand prisons like hugely different?
New Zealand prisons are a lot tamer.
Yeah.
They're a lot tamer, but nonetheless, you're still putting someone in a building with a whole bunch of people who are in there for serious actual crimes, not like using the wrong molecules in their own body. Right? You're putting non-violent, totally harmless people into a giant building full of violent offenders.
I would argue.
Please say something. Can I please say something? Can I please say something? Yeah. There's been a lot of potential shown in treating drug addiction with, I think it's called Ibogaine. It's a hallucinogenic drug which people give it to.
Biogaine.
Yeah. What was it called?
Biogaine,
where they give it to people. It's like a hallucinogen, and they lose after taking it, they go off the withdrawal. They go through withdrawal without any pain, and they lose their craving for the drug afterwards. That's what I've heard. I might be completely wrong on that, but
there's several people it's worked for.
I have to point out something to Danny. Hold on a second.
Real quick, I just want to say this. If anyone doesn't know, meth has the highest relapse rate of any drug out there on the market right now.
Yeah,
even more than heroin.
Look,
even more than heroin. It is the highest relapse rate.
That
is according to the Talbot campus, which is a recovery center.
I
which
have
is
a lot of
arena.
empathy. I have a lot of empathy for anybody recovering from drug addiction. But if you're recovering from meth, I pray for you because that's all that can help you.
It can be difficult to get out of a drug addiction. That can be sure, but like, yeah, a lot of people intentionally do want to do it and will check themselves in somewhere. There are people who are on meth who are perfectly fine doing meth, and there is nothing wrong with that. Right? That's the thing. You can attack those people in jail too.
Well, Danny,
So
the problem is that there is something wrong with that, in my opinion.
There's something seriously wrong with it.
Not with everyone. You can't have these absolute rules where it's like, no, this substance, no one's life has ever been better because of it. Bullshit. Some people enjoy the experience and don't.
No one's life is better because of meth, except maybe
nobody. I'm on Cher's side. There's nobody's life that has ever benefited from taking methamphetamine.
Except
that's a nice opinion you've got there, but there are many people who disagree with you.
Danny,
right? I don't think you can decide on.
Danny, time out.
Hold up.
Danny, I'll give you.
Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. I don't think that you can decide for other people how they should run their lives. Some people say that they are fine doing meth. Who are you to tell them they're not?
I'm not. Here's the thing. You said earlier, one cancellation of a theory, and it cancels a theory, right?
One cancellation of an absolute rule. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you said no. You said no one, which is a word that means an absolute.
Show me somebody whose life has benefited from methamphetamine, and I will reject my statement.
Okay. I mean, obviously, I won't have that on hand, but so you're actually saying this.
Exactly.
I mean, I won't have someone whose life is ruined by it either. Hey, hold up, that's complete bullshit. I won't have someone whose life is ruined by it either. I haven't. Do you want to listen to what I'm saying, or do you want to kind of talk over me? So, okay, that's kind of bullshit. I don't have an example of someone whose life is ruined or made better by it because I don't have these examples on hand. But are you willing to go on record right now, and if I can show you a single person who is saying, yeah, I'm on meth and that's totally fine, that you will change your position? Are you going on record saying that?
If I actually looked at their life and said, yeah, you're fine, rather than you perceive.
So you have to say it's better. It's not just they think it's better. It's up to you. You are the arbiter of whether someone's life is good or not.
Well, if somebody perceives their life as being good because they're living in a gutter, and it's better than living in a swamp, then yeah, I'm gonna kind of be an arbiter on that and say, no, your life isn't better. Your life is still shit.
So basically, what you're doing is giving us something out there, so I can give you someone who actually has made their life better according to them, and you will go, no, that doesn't count because I don't like their life.
Time out. Danny, I got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Is living in abject poverty, is that someone who is, at least in your mind, someone who is happy with their life and or...
I don't know, ask them. I think most people in poverty don't like it, and if you ask them and they'd say, no, I don't like being in poverty.
I would say that
someone said they're fine, I wouldn't tell them that they're not.
I would say that somebody can be happy living in abject poverty. I think that they can be. I don't think it's common. I think that it can be. I wouldn't say it's impossible.
Exactly.
But I would say it is impossible to improve your life by using crystal methamphetamine.
Why?
Because there is no improvement there. There's nothing that gets better.
Why not? It's an enjoyable experience, most likely.
Yeah, enjoyment does not equal a better life. Period.
Okay, let's look at this logically. Now that it's calmed down enough. So, methamphetamine users are heavy drug users, right? Scenario one, they get arrested. Should they get caught, they're forced to go into withdrawal. Basically in a tank. Now, if we're operating under the hypothetical that they haven't been arrested for it before, they have a job, they're somewhat functional in society. Now they have an arrest on their record. They've most likely missed work. Now, while granted, some people might argue, well, now they have no money for drugs. Well, they also now have no money to support their family, their home. their groceries, stuff like that to help their family survive should they have one. Okay, now after they get out, now they have to go through a mandatory thing where it's like drug rehab, right? That takes more money or insurance, money that they no longer have because now they've most likely lost their job due to the nature of the arrest, if not the arrest itself. So then you're telling me that taking them to jail, if we're operating under this hypothetical, is the best solution for them?
I've also chucked in the side there a fellow who's now a successful writer, and he talks about doing crystal meth and it having no significant negative effects. And in fact, he used it to cure his writer's block, and he got some really good stuff out. He's not addicted to it because he used it responsibly. There is such a thing as responsible drug use, and I don't want to lock people up for that.
They used to have methamphetamine for prescription like years and years ago. It was in pill form.
Mm.
They used to
And
give it to
inhaler form,
kamikaze. They used to give it to kamikazes too.
I think
Sure. So there are I was told that if I showed you one person, then you'd change your position, wasn't I?
Yeah.
You would have to think life is good, but you think
here's the thing. Here's the thing. That's self-reporting. I'd be more than willing to look into it. I am. You sent me a link. I'm going to go ahead and look at it.
I chucked it in the side there.
Yeah. I saw that. And I'm not going to lie. I'm an evidence-based person. If you provide me evidence that disproves my theory, I believe, honestly, Dan, I believe that you theory exists. So I believe that that if you can disprove my theory, then I'll accept that evidence.
Keep in mind that my position is not that crystal meth tends to be good. I think crystal meth tends to be bad for most people. My position. Sorry, let me finish. I think that I'm not saying crystal meth tends to be good. I think it probably tends to be bad for most people. But there are some people who use it responsibly, and they've done nothing wrong, not hurt anyone, and it's been a positive experience for them. And if you make a law that's specifically just against using crystal meth, then that person's going to jail for no fucking reason. That's a bad law.
Yeah, I agree that no one should go to jail for a crime with no victim but themselves.
Yeah, if they are
so you're okay with child pornography?
No, that child.
That hurts other people.
That does. I mean,
taking a picture hurts someone.
We're not getting into that, though, guys. Okay, we're not going to get.
We went from talking about how to fix relations between cops and
we're not going there.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and pull up Danny's earlier line and my earlier line before that, which was, "This is a brainstorming session for finding solutions." What kind of ideas can we come up with for helping the public understand the cops are not out to get you? They really aren't. In all reality, they're just everyday people, just like you.
Well,
Dolphin, before we get
hold on. I haven't heard from Rin in a while, and I think she has something to say. So I'm going to ask that she get allowed to speak.
Yeah, I was watching a YouTube video where there was this cop who was in a black neighborhood, and he was playing around with the black kids. Like, he was giving like a fake kid like an arrest for, like, I don't know, stealing a candy or choking and playing around. I do think that things like that helps build a closer relationship with the cops and the public. And like, there was a news article where there were like some black people who were having a barbecue with the cops. They were talking and having good chats. It was a good time. So I just think that, talking to people, getting involved with the neighborhood to help build relationships will really help, because the media is going to continue to lie. The media is going to continue to spew propaganda. So, if the cops were to go and just be like, getting involved in the neighborhoods, playing with the kids and do things like that. Like, I've read a story where there was a black kid who ran away from home, and the cop, he, learned about the kid. He talked to the kid. And he helped the kid out. So he bought the kid a bed. He played video games to the kid. And now there's like a healthy relationship between the black community and the cop. So I just think it's about getting involved. And the more, you get involved, it would destroy the media's narrative anyway, because people are going to go based more off personal experience than what the media has to say.
I would agree. I think that Rin's got a point. People don't trust the media as much as they trust what they see every day. Placeholder had some points he wanted to make earlier. Placeholder?
Hello. So first off, hello everybody.
Hello.
Some of you in a long time. I haven't seen you in a while, Danny. Hello, Rin.
No.
So I think Rin does bring up an excellent point, and I'll address that here in just a moment. Dolphin, I think the main issue with the whole crystal meth argument thing that just happened is you're taking personal experience as prime over statistical data. And the chat kind of pointed that out as well. I just wanted to bring that up. I think it's wrong for us to tell people what they can or cannot do in their own personal time. I think Danny is absolutely correct on this one. And I don't think I've disagreed with Danny on that since he and I have interacted, rarely as that may be. I think the main issue with the media is not that the police are not interacting with these communities. They clearly are. And that's how we have programs where police go in and they interact and wind up playing basketball and doing token gestures. I think a more permanent solution would be for us to have cops from those communities. How is a cop going to trust that how is a cop going to trust that community if he doesn't know anybody in there on more than just a superficial basis? And I would argue that saying the cops that go and actually do interact with the kids is still a very superficial level of interaction with those people. They need to actually understand the issues within the community.
And you're saying that they should live in the communities they police.
Well, it's more like be the change you want to see.
Yeah. If people want to see change in the cops, then they should become cops. But it's more fundamental than that. I think that if we were to change the laws being enforced and remove the drug laws, that would alleviate the massive backflow of people that are stuck in the system and would keep more people out of the system. I think that it's morally reprehensible that we tell people what they can or cannot do with themselves, and that's why I support Roe v. Wade, because the government doesn't have the right to tell me that I can't do that. The biggest issue is being overlooked in favor of just focusing on the police. It's not just the police. It's not just the media. We need to look at it as a more holistic approach and say, well, what laws can be changed? Now, I understand that there will be disagreement within that, and I would like to hear why drug laws are not immoral.
Well, I think this wasn't an interview stream about drug laws, but I did have a response to something you said there, Placeholder, which is a point that I made a little bit earlier in the stream, which is I agree that there are a lot of legitimate problems to have with policing in your nation, in any nation. And a large part of that, I even agree, will not just be the police themselves. It will be it'll be the laws. It'll be the holistic sort of the entire system, right? Yeah, I agree with all of that. But we're talking about the image of the police, and at least in the US, the majority of the problems with the image with the majority of the problems with the police's image in the US are not due to their policing of drug laws, are not due to the bad laws that they enforce, are not due to their behavior in any way. It is literally just lies, which is causing people to hate the police most of the time. Maybe you think people should hate the police, but at least right now, the reasons that they are complete bullshit. We need to combat lies.
But I think that if we were to attack the main point of contention, we would have a much more effective outcome in terms of whether or not the criticisms, let's call them, of the police are valid.
So, wait, what is the main point of contention? Sorry, I want to clarify that.
That it's not necessarily just. I don't disagree that culture is a problem. I think a more fundamental issue is the laws in place. The laws on the books are the bigger issue. I think that if we were to change those laws, we would have a much more objective measure as to whether or not those criticisms, let's call them, are legitimate of the police.
Let's take a moment. Hold on, guys.
Wait.
Let's take a moment and let's hear from Politipod, who I believe has been waiting to weigh in on this for some time.
Yeah. So I think I'm sitting in between Placeholder and Danny on the whole drug laws thing. I agree. I don't think it's right that we should be policing people on at least soft drugs like weed and LSD. But the harder drugs are a little bit different for me. But I want to touch on something that Placeholder said earlier. Do you actually think that getting a cop from these areas is going to change people's opinions on the police as a whole?
Well, it would have to stand to reason that if these people are from within the same community, that they would be hating people that they know or potentially like and have an emotional attachment to. So the schism would form, and they would wind up suffering cognitive dissonance until they can resolve it. And
were you alive during the LA riots, or just the 1990s in general?
Yeah, 92.
I was very young. If it was after 92.
Okay, so in NWA song, there's a line.
Fuck the police. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, fuck the police. There's a line that says "Black police showing out for the white cops." That line alone shows what the African American perspective on police officers from within their communities is. They look at them as traitors. They look at them as coons. They look at them as though they're betraying their race, and that is stemming from, I think, partially the drug laws. Yes, because whenever you take away someone's father after they commit 3 very light drug offenses and throw them in jail for the rest of their life, that kind of has an effect on somebody's psyche, whether it be their brother, their husband, or whatever. I think what we're seeing here, as I don't think it's underrepresentation for these communities. I think it's the perspective that these people are traitors whenever they do this, and that the people in these communities are unwilling to give them the chance to change their minds. And like I said, that NWA line alone shows that that's what their perspective is, and it's been the same since 92 or whatever they.
I think that's the perspective of NWA.
Yeah, I was gonna Placeholder said it there.
Like, if I listen to Norwegian death metal and all they sing about is raping virgins and eating babies, does that mean that I support raping virgins? Is
Norwegian death metal a cultural icon for an entire race of people?
No, neither is NWA.
It isn't? Really?
No. I grew up in a black neighborhood.
I can guarantee
Wait,
you.
hold up. Norwegian death metal is dominant in Norway.
No, it's black metal. Black metal.
Look,
it doesn't matter. The
I
question
grew up in a primarily black neighborhood.
I'm not talking about Norway. I'm talking about.
There are 3 or 4 or 5 different cultures within the black community, and to lump them all into one is ridiculous.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. Let's say that, I like Coheed and Cambria. I think that their music is quite enjoyable.
You're one of those.
Coheed and Cambria have songs that are about graphic violence.
Yes.
Does that mean that I think that graphic violence, even though I listen and support their music, should be enacted on others?
That's not what I'm saying. I think there's a bit of a disconnect between actually acting on something and then them voicing their opinions on the matter. And that's what I was trying to say. And NWA is voicing their opinions that they learned and listened to through their community. It's not that they are acting on it and that they're going and killing cops, because obviously they haven't. I'm not saying that music causes violence. What I'm saying is that it influences people's opinions, just like video, just like television, just like news, just like anything else does. It influences people. Especially
I want to back up Politipod, actually. If I could just back up Politipod here, he's right. There is a difference between NWA and Coheed and Cambria, right? You can't listen to Coheed and Cambria and be sane and think that they are advocating any of the violence they talk about. But NWA, just they literally say, I kill police officers. Or at least that they talk about that's actually a good thing. You can totally be a sane person and come away thinking NWA wants you to kill cops, but you can't be a
cop killer
coming away and thinking that Coheed and Cambria wants you to force people with swords.
I'm a musician, and I am a believer in that. I don't believe music causes people to do stuff. However, I am a believer that music can represent a sort of cultural mindset, can define what a culture is thinking. I think in the difference between like death metal or something in like the metal community, in the rap community, the black rap community. In metal, I mean, you don't have to act out the stuff that's on the tape. They're just they're doing that for half the times you listen to death metal, you can't even understand the lyrics. It's mostly
that's because you're
Can I finish my thought? Can I finish my thought?
Hold on. I'm gonna jump in on you because we're trying to find solutions here. We're not trying to find grievances.
All right.
So what is the solution here? How do we repair these problems? NWA says let's talk up. How do police officers and the public that hears that music find a better relationship?
My question regarding NWA, do you think Ice Cube stands by those lyrics?
I don't believe he does now.
Okay, so that's an example of a cultural icon having a hardline stance and changing. And that change has a definite measurable effect on the culture that he affects.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely it does.
Was there lots of black people that went and watched
Ice Cube?
What was that Ice Cube movie that just came out a few years ago?
By the way, I have to point out. Hold on a second. Ice Cube came back with Good Cop, Bad Cop.
Okay.
You remember
You
that
do realize
song
that
when
Ice
that
Cube
came out?
you realize that Ice Cube is not as popular as he once was as well, correct?
I know, but I'm just saying that you're saying that he left that mindset behind, but that latest song shows that he hasn't left that mindset behind.
I feel like we're going down a kind of a rabbit hole here and straying away from the point.
Yeah.
Well, my point is that just because I'm not saying that it advocates, I mean, someone it advocates for it, obviously, but what I'm saying is that culturally, whenever somebody hears one of their favorite musicians or an actor, artist that they like in general, a lot of the time it affects their opinion on things, and it seems to be magnified whenever it comes to the African American community in America, obviously.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying because I think that's why Keon Webb came out with a new song called "Ye versus the People," where the rap song is about why he supports Donald Trump, where IT represents the people. And the song is meant to start a conversation.
Well, here's my thing though. Okay, we tried burning the Cop Killer record and the NWA records. Okay, and that didn't really do anything. So how it is doing it? Can we do anything but the music? Is music contributing enough that we need to is that part of the solution?
So,
changing rap music, is that part of our solution here?
I wouldn't say that changing rap music is a significant solution. What I would say is that it's symptomatic of the fundamental issue, which is very simply that most people believe a lie. If you want to correct the lie that most people believe, you have to start saying the truth more. If you look at sort of a conservative Fox News or maybe more underground conservatives podcasts and that sort of thing. Yeah, all of that sort of stuff. They tend to accept a lot of what the left says quite uncritically. And make no mistake, this is a left and right issue. I'm just going to throw that out there. Really, really.
That's a huge part of it, definitely.
So yeah, they accept a lot of what the left says, and they don't. I've never really seen them push the point that if we look at the stats, it seems like cops are more willing to shoot white people. Maybe we should be pushing White Lives Matter.
Okay.
And if anyone recoils at that, then that just means that one side is willing to push this narrative and the other side is not willing to really combat it.
See, here's the thing. That becomes a dangerous thing, too. They start accusing you of supremacy when you do that right now in the climate we're in, okay? Here's my question.
You just have to be okay with that.
Okay, but how do you think that we have, this is not, I don't have an opinion on this really, but do you think we have addressed the past in regards to race relations with police? Do we think we've addressed the past enough that we can move to the present and deal with the lies that we're currently being told about statistics on that?
You're talking about
the past of violence against black people from the police. Like there was a past history of racism.
In the
We can't deny
1960s,
that.
the police were rather abusive towards black people due to these sort of
Rodney King,
times and whatnot.
Are
But
we
at the same
talking-
time, I think that there needs to be kind of an attempt to. But the thing is that the civil rights the kind of civil rights leaders never came out and said, "Okay, these people have changed now. We don't need to be scared anymore." But the culture didn't shift. They are still relying on this narrative in order to make money, and I don't think they're gonna get rid of it anytime soon.
Is it possibly because the African American leaders from the civil rights movement, at least the good ones, were either killed, imprisoned, or are no longer living, and the only ones that we're left with are Jesse Jackson and
Al Sharpton,
fucking Al Sharpton, who promote a race-hating, anti-white, anti-cop Louis Farrakhan, who's an absolute racist, like a legitimate, unabashed racist.
If you're actually talking about any cops or administrators who are involved in hurting black people for being black people, then sure, definitely respond to that. But unless you can find me one of those, then this is a waste of time talking about, but the historical oppression and all that stuff. Show me the person who done the oppression. Let's fire that person. Cool, great.
Let's take a step away from the racial argument here. And let me present a few concepts here. Let's say that police officers in general start walking the beat more. Stop issuing tickets. If we could institute some sort of law or amendment that says that it is illegal for any state or municipality to require an officer of the law to submit a certain amount of citations or arrests in order to prove that they are doing their job effectively. To stop putting the police under that pressure. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but they don't call them quotas. What they call them is performance evaluation metrics. And what that means is if you as a police officer don't meet this performance standard, you don't stand up and write this many tickets and arrest this many people. If you don't do this, then you are not doing your job accurately, and we will fire you.
Yeah, it's despicable.
Now, I want you to think about this for a second. You're an electronics salesman. Some guy comes into your store. He's got a pregnant wife holding a baby. And he's like, yeah, I'm looking for a new TV. Are you going to sell him the Best Buy because you kind of feel sorry for him? Or are you going to go for the commission check and sell him a $1,500 TV he doesn't need? That's the cop's position. If he doesn't sell the high-end TV, he loses his job. Period.
So
we can throw that dude in jail. If he can't write him a ticket, if you can't write him 6 tickets, he's not going to be a cop anymore, and he's going to have to go find another line of work. And this is not fair.
If I may. So we can prove if these measures are in effect. Quotas in the United States regarding policing are illegal.
I know they are.
Enforce that even as a performance metric.
No, they are enforced as a performance evaluation metric. That's what it's called, a performance evaluation metric.
Right, and if an officer is fired as a result of that performance metric having been subpar, and they can prove that it was not
They don't get fired, though. They don't get fired. They just don't get the shitty post. Okay, they get you go into work and you hate it, or you go into work and you love your job because you met the performance of an evaluation metric.
It'd be so much easier if we had an officer here.
I really wish we did. I really wish Mike could.
This is an empirical. This is just an empirical disagreement here. It seems this isn't like there's no opinion here. We just need to know: do police officers have performance reviews which will require a certain amount of arrests or some kind of implicit quota in order to get a promotion? Right? Can we find that in any police department? If we can't, then it seems like Placeholder's right, or at least he might be right. And if he can, it's
might just be theory.
It's at least reasonable
game theory
to claim.
Just because it's not right, just because it's not legal, doesn't mean it's not done.
I've got a poll here. about how people view cops. So it looks like they surveyed.
Hey, Chair, can you go ahead and present pod?
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks.
There you go.
All right, so they surveyed people from August 8th to the 21st of 2017, and these are the results. White people who view the cops very cold or somewhat cold is 14%, neutral is 11%, and somewhat warm or very warm is 73%. Blacks who view the cops very cold or somewhat cold are 38%, neutral is 28%, and positive, which is somewhat warm or very warm, is 20%, or excuse me, 30%. Hispanics is 17% for somewhat or very cold, 25% neutral, and that is 45%.
Yeah.
Somewhat or very warm.
Do you know how
it's
many
hard to
were
say
in
that
this
it's
study?
not a racial issue when you look at that.
How many people were in the study?
Cultural
though?
issue.
How many people were in the study?
That's
It's a
like
cultural issue, but it falls along racial lines. And
sure. But here's the thing,
the cultural differences are about beliefs that they have about the cops' reaction to race. So race is very intertwined with this issue.
You gotta click on the survey link at the top.
Can we use this to help us find solutions? Can we use this to help us?
I think so.
Sure.
Danny,
that
lead the way.
Read the link?
No, lead the way. Lead the way.
Oh, okay.
Lead the way, my brother.
I think that so from that, if we're looking at it, and it seems like it's not the guilty white liberals who tend to be pushing the narrative, or at least majority believe the narrative of cops are racist. It seems to be just really strongly in black communities, right?
I'm glad you said that, Danny, because I got a Pew Research poll that shows what the breakdown is with the Republicans, liberals, or Republicans, Democrats, and Independent.
Can we present that information, Pod?
Yeah, I got it up right now.
I was talking to the chair. My bad.
Oh, you good. So Republicans who view the cops somewhat or very cold is only 5%. Conservatives is 3%, and moderate or liberal Republicans is 14%.
And actually, so what I just said might actually be wrong when you think about it, because whites are such a larger portion of the population that still a majority of the people who are anti-cop because of this racial myth, the racist cop myth, the majority of them might actually still be white liberals.
I mean,
even though it's that I haven't crunched the numbers there. But
I think I've got a breakdown of that as well in this.
If we go by sheer absolute numbers, then yes, it would be skewed in favor of white person. When we control per capita, however, we wind up seeing an entirely different result.
So
additionally, probably those white liberals are going by the lived experiences of black people. So basically, if black people say that they think cops are racist, they'll believe they are.
So here's a breakdown.
Danny, I'm starting to fall in love with you through the stream, but at the same time, you're being rather.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I actually forgot what I was going to say. Carry on.
So I think one of the biggest issues that hasn't actually been addressed, and Egglord in the chat brought this up earlier, and I wanted to make sure it was touched on before we concluded the stream. One of the biggest issues is the militarization of police.
No, we're nowhere near concluding this stream. Militarization is actually a major impact on the public's perception of it. And I think it's a bad perception.
I think the biggest issue regarding that is that it tips the balance of power too far in favor of the state. This would occur even if it was a private entity doing this, so I don't think privatization of the police force would help.
Yeah, I also don't think having a massive...
So I just want to cut Danny's legs out from under him.
Hold on. Placeholder, I'm going to disagree with you on that. Privatization under the Anti-Griffith statute, if you had a private company that was policing by the Anti-Griffith, that like just walking the beat, talking to everybody, and occasionally stepping up and saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, I got to write you a ticket. Hey, I got to arrest you," because I can't avoid it. There's no question about it. You fucked up, That is the standard by which police should be operating, not the, oh, look, I caught you for, you dropped a piece of trash, that's littering, you're going in cuffs. You know,
I don't know where you live that you get arrested for littering, but it sounds like a hellhole.
No,
It's a $500 fine, $1,000 fine.
I think I'm being hyperbolic on purpose. What I mean is, like, when the police are fishing for a reason to arrest you, and the concept is, you jump on YouTube and you look up the First Amendment audits, and you see these guys that they go out and film, and you see them, they're actually looking for a confrontation, and I get that. They're looking for YouTube fame if they get arrested, whatever. But in the end, they're not actually violating any laws. And sometimes police get so upset by these things that they go ahead and they violate the blue line. They cross the blue line and they become the villain. And that's the problem. That's when those officers say, I'm more important than your rights. No, you're not. I think that's the problem with the police that exists today. Is the
Are people?
Yeah, people.
Let me ask you that, Dolphin. Are people?
People are people.
So one person, just because he has a badge, is still going to be the exact same person without the badge that he is with the badge. Would you agree with that?
I am the biggest advocate of the 9th Amendment, which basically says your rights end where my rights begin. So I absolutely agree. Nobody is more important than any other person.
Let me ask you something. There's a famous video. There's a famous video of a liberal, I think it was in Germany, who had like a balloon, it was looking like a sword or something. She started hitting this police officer on the fucking head with it, violating his personal space, mind you. Started hitting it on the face. And I think the balloon popped, or the policeman popped it, and then the girl started crying.
Oh yeah, I saw that video.
So who's in the wrong in that situation? Is it the police officer for popping the balloon, or is it the other person who purposefully made a confrontation happen with the police officer? Because I would argue that it's not in the police officer's responsibility whenever his own rights are being violated.
I would argue in this situation that the entire situation has been completely balanced out by popping the balloon.
If I can refocus for just a moment. So, to bring it back to the issue of the militarization of the police and why privatization is a bad solution to this. I understand the free market provides, supposedly. There are plenty of things that the free market fails to do. And I think policing is certainly one of them. If we're worried about corruption within the government, can you imagine how much worse corruption would be if there's an armed military force enforcing arbitrary rules? Let's say
hold up. Okay, so you said I just gotta pause you there because you said quite a mouthful. Arbitrary rules. First of all, what on earth makes you think that they would be arbitrary? I mean, companies don't
heavy regulation.
Companies don't provide arbitrary products and services, right? You understand that they respond to market demand. Right?
Well, no, I'm not saying that all laws are not arbitrary. A lot of the rules that we have on the books are arbitrary.
I'm talking about privatization.
Yeah, Danny's not talking about laws. He's talking about the market interest.
Yes, I understand that.
No, hold on.
I'm talking about the market interest for law.
Hey, but but I think wouldn't privatizing the police force be kind of similar to privatizing the military in a way? Because while they are two separate entities, they are essentially providing the same thing.
No.
Oh, what the fuck? No, that's a big no.
I think that he's right on the level that they're both providing the service of I don't want my shit broken and destroyed.
Well, one is providing.
He's definitely correct to some extent because both of them do provide the service of we will protect your stuff.
Well, that's a protection service, but their levels of what they protect are a lot different.
Yeah, and levels, of course, but I wasn't talking like on an exact level. I was going to say that one protects from foreign entities and the other one protects from criminals and whatnot on domestic soil. So in that, then they're both protecting from malicious forces, but both of them have it on different scales and whatnot. So that's essentially what I was trying to say.
Military also don't have an arrest.
Here's the thing. Carthage kind of proved that this didn't work about 2,000 years ago, so we're kind of past that.
Wait, what didn't work 2,000 years ago?
Okay, so you can't just like throw that out as a side comment, right? So what do you mean? So Carthage proved that you can't have a market-based solution for law.
No, Carthage proved that you can't have a market-based solution for military protection.
Why?
Because they had an all-mercenary force, and the only dedicated soldier was Hannibal. He was the only one that saw any success against the Romans, and once he failed, all of fucking Carthage fell. So
okay, so there's so much wrong with that. So first of all, that's a single example of a private police force.
Didn't you say a single example? Hold on.
Hang on.
A single example.
The public one is not.
It just proves an absolute. But that's the opposite of what I'm saying. I would say that a private solution can work, not that it will in every conceivable case. Does a single example of a government society? Hey, I've got to get you to listen, my dude. So does a single example of a country with a state military being taken over prove that state militaries can't work?
No, but
okay.
But hear me out.
And a big one.
It's a big butt. You're gonna love this butt. It's gonna be that butt that you can ride for days.
And we're gonna make Mexico pay for it.
It's gonna be a Kim Kardashian ass, huh?
We're gonna get Mexico to pay for it too.
The point is, when you're paying people to fight for you, and the other side says, "Hey, we'll pay you more," what do you do? My point is no. My point is over. When you pay for your military,
no, you're not.
You cannot trust them because they go to the highest bidder.
Okay, so wow.
You can't collect a check if you die. You can't. You're not willing to die for a paycheck. That's the end.
That's literally what soldiers do now.
No, it's not. Exactly. Oh my God.
Are you telling me you think that if we didn't pay soldiers at all, they would all of the same soldiers would still go to war?
It's obvious you're not an American.
If we didn't get paid?
Well, you think that if no soldiers got paid,
no.
soldier would exactly the same. There's none of them who would.
That's a bit different, though.
I believe.
Hang on.
I believe, Danny, that you have made it obvious that you are not an American.
But one thing I think we can all agree that one proposed solution to fix the police that we can all agree on, which is not a good solution, is the mass centralization of the police. I mean, I've heard many activists say this, like they would have like one big massive federal centralized agency, bureaucracy controlling the entire, having bringing all the different police forces under certain set under one centralized set of standards. And while that seemed to a degree, that seems like a practical solution, I feel very nervous giving the government that amount of bureaucratic power over.
I'm nervous that you think that laws apply to every area the same.
Yeah, I think localities.
Call me Aspie. I'm called the Incredible Aspie.
If I can cut in real quick. So Aspie brings up an interesting point. It would be bad to have centralized power in regards to a police force, even though, which we do actually have that, the executive branch,
U.S. Marshals, the FBI.
Those are all within the executive
FBI is
branch.
different from your local police
branch
department.
From state police, which is completely separate from local police.
If I can finish what I was saying.
Placeholder, go on.
They all fall under the jurisdiction of the executive branch. We already have this. And it works pretty well. Not to say that it doesn't have its problems. I think it would be foolish to say that it doesn't have its problems. Mm-hmm. For example, it's difficult to get agencies to interact with each other. That is a problem that can be fixed through reform. However, the biggest issue with the private military force is, well, that private military force or that private police force disagrees with the laws in place. They're not beholden to the actual government if one exists, and they have the equipment to resist any sort of a federalized response to this. So we have essentially a city in lockdown held by what at that point would be tantamount to a terrorist force.
What?
No.
What are you talking
this
about?
is,
Watch the original RoboCop.
Okay. So I kind of think I need to just do a quick rundown of this. That's not at all. The whole thing was said. The whole thing was said about.
Can you please let Danny finish what he's going to say?
Hold on. Danny, I want you to finish this in about 2 seconds.
Okay, go.
After I say what I'm going to say. Okay. Once Danny finishes, let's get back to talking about how to fix relationships between the police and the public.
Fix the culture.
Okay. Anyway, Danny, please. I am too entertained not to ask you to please finish your thought.
Well, I'm glad that you're having fun. Grab some popcorn, and I'll try to be as quick as I possibly can. Okay, so Placeholder, you were talking there about... Damn it. So you were talking about the privatization of police, and you assumed that there would be one monopoly provider in a single area of a city, and that is not at all how I would at least advocate that it ought to work. I believe that a set of private institutions, it's possible to create one which would allow competition. Right? If you think that that's infeasible, then we can have a discussion about that. But if you try to talk about like, oh, this wouldn't work because you'd have a monopoly provider. A monopoly provider is literally the whole point that I'm trying to avoid. We now have monopoly providers, right? There is the government you can't compete with the government's police force. You can't say, people aren't liking this police force. I want to start up a different one. We'll protect your property and all that stuff. We'll beat up people who beat up you so that they'll be incentivized not to do so, et cetera, et cetera. You can't compete with the government services, right? That is the problem. That is what I am against. I don't like monopoly providers because they tend to provide low-quality services.
So let's assume that we don't have a situation in the United States where there is a service that has essentially become a de facto monopoly, which we do. We have several of them that are aside from the government, like cable or internet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we already
which have government-mandated monopolies in certain areas.
Well, yeah, and that's a problem that I would certainly like to see remediated. You and I are in agreement that that's bad.
Yeah, that is bad, but I want to make sure that we understand.
Like cell phone companies.
I just want to make sure that we know that those monopolies are not like a free market monopoly. They are government-mandated monopolies, which I hold as the only kind that's
like the cell phone companies.
So if the government were to release those restrictions and undo that regulation, those corporations have no reason not to just merge. And then there's one provider. That's bad.
No,
the reason that there are regional monopoly providers is largely because the cables laid down on the ground in the US, that is determined by the specific municipalities, and the cable companies make deals with the different municipalities. It's a government-mandated monopoly. It's not some company. No one can compete with them. You're not allowed to start up a competing cable company in most places. It's required that you don't. That's not a natural monopoly. There would be tons of competition if the government got out of the way.
I disagree with that. But
I'm confused as how you would think that one company is going to merge with another company just because they have no reason not to. What if one company is doing far better than another company? They're beating them in literally every single aspect, and they're making more money. What's the point of merging with a smaller company that is not going to make you hardly any more money than you're already making? That's right. Let me get back to your point, your militarization point. Let me get back to your militarization point, Placeholder. So, in what situations do you think that the police is over-militarized? Is it the fact that they wear bulletproof vests, the fact that they carry guns? I want to know where you're drawing the line.
Did you see the tanks in Ferguson?
I think it's a problem that they have.
Yeah, I saw the National Guard tanks in Ferguson. Yes, I sure did.
I think it's a problem that they have APCs. I think it's a problem that they have military-grade Hummers in certain districts.
Military-grade Hummers. We don't use Hummers in the military.
What about SWAT? Can we have SWAT?
SWAT's a different type of
no. SWAT
is their specialized. I don't think the general. Hang on. I'm answering your question. I don't think that the general police population should have fully automatic rifles. I don't think that the general police population should have armored personnel carriers. SWAT is an entirely different, highly specialized and specifically trained force who's dedicated to doing just one thing.
So SWAT's okay to have it because they have special training, but a police force is not able to have certain things because they're not specially certified in training with them, even though they have to go through training.
Let me ask you
this. For 6 months, shouldn't have access to fully automatic rifles.
I have access to a fully automatic rifle. The only training I have is military training. Before that, I didn't even have any training. And I still have fully automatic.
Pod, chill. Pod.
I'm not unchill. I'm just asking questions.
Placeholder. Let me ask you this: if police officers got special training on an individual basis for all kinds of special weapons and tactics, just like SWAT, would they then be allowed to be able to carry the same kind of tactical gear and firearms that SWAT would carry?
I think if they have I think if they have that training, they should just be a part of SWAT.
Ooh, well, what if they're not? What if they're not part of SWAT, but they went and got the training anyway? What if they're just overachievers?
Well, I'm sorry, that's not your standard issued equipment.
Oh, is it not?
No. Like, should they be able to?
Dang, that thing was cool.
Should they be qualified? If they're qualified to carry it, should they not be allowed to carry it?
First off, no personal
Nigerian
weapons.
police.
I think that. Hang on, Aspie. I think first off, no personal weapons should be allowed in terms of law enforcement. Law enforcement should only carry specific weapons that are issued by the state. Secondly, I think that if we have uniform training that is more than 6 weeks in police academy,
I agree.
That's the biggest issue is the lack of training that are.
I think we actually have 3 months here in Georgia minimum, and that's
Ours
if
is
you're like an overachiever.
Yeah, it's different from state to state.
Yeah, in Georgia, I think it's actually 6 months to become a fully fledged officer, but you can graduate in 3 months if you.
Let me ask you something. Is that this right here? Is that over militarization? This vehicle right here. Is that over militarization?
Somebody should name that. That'd be great.
Yeah, please.
This one right here. The surveillance van that they use.
Chair, can you please?
No, I'm asking you a question.
Present Pod. This
Somehow,
is beautiful.
put a picture of the Pope up there. That'd be great.
So what we're looking at, I'm assuming, is a strategic vehicle that allows the sniper to get a shot.
CPR. Oh wait, no, it's a CTB.
It's pretty awesome, though.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, is one of their. It's either surveillance or it is a command vehicle.
It has no military application. It
certainly does.
With the exception of directing troops. It has no offensive measures.
You know what they use this for? Neither do the APCs that you claim are so militarized. What the hell do you think this is?
Okay, guys. I'd like to think.
None of these. No, hang on, real quick, Dolphin. I just want to point out.
Pod, you're missing the point.
Armor personnel carriers for military are completely different from armor personnel carriers for the police force. The armor personnel carriers that you're looking at for the police, in my view, from what I am seeing in front of me, from all the examples I have seen on not just TV, but in person, and from fucking pictures from here, I have not seen a single APC that is military, or excuse me, police issued that has
the majority
some type
of them are
offensive
decommissioned
capacity to it. Because most of the time, an armor personnel carrier just carries personnel. It's kind of what the name says.
Pod, let me ask you, should the police force have access to decommissioned military equipment?
Yeah.
Yes, they certainly should.
I mean, I'm not saying I mean,
it's being called recycling. Yes, I think we should not waste more money on useless vehicles whenever we've already had them made.
I think we should decommission and dismantle them and recycle those parts into other vehicles.
I'm asking Danny to weigh in.
The reason that I was staying out of the militarization of the police thing is because I essentially see discussions of police behavior and how the police operates like some like obese person who refuses to accept that the problem is their obesity, and they're just like, no, it's just because I'm not eating enough radishes. I think that'll really help me feel healthier. And it's like, no, you're just obese. It's the obesity, and they're like, yeah, maybe that is affecting it, but let me just talk about these other issues. And it's like, no, it's the obesity, and that's what I think about police when they're talking about like changing
not getting down to the core of the problem.
The problem is that the media is constantly lying about you, and people refuse to respond to it adequately. Right? I said just before, well, the stats say that cops are more willing to shoot white people than black people on an interaction by interaction basis. If there is racism, it appears to be against white people. Should we not have White Lives Matter? And everyone's response, or at least the people who did respond, said, no, well, you can't have that. That's you'll be called a white supremacist or something like that. There you go. That is why we are failing to properly respond. The lies being spread cannot be adequately responded to because everyone is afraid of being called racist if they do.
If I may suggest an alternative, I don't do the whole Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, White Lives Matter thing because no lives matter. That really should be the unifying call. But all jokes aside.
Typical nihilistic atheist.
All jokes aside. The biggest issue is the culture surrounding these people, and we have to target the generational hatred that is taught. White people have it, black people have it, it's endemic to humanity. What we're arguing is how to address, moreover, it's not giving the police a facelift. It's how do we change human nature in such a way that it gives this benefit to society.
You can't change human nature. All you can do is pacify it.
Additionally, we don't want to change human nature. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. We want to correct the lies. If your solution has nothing to do with the constant and unending lies that cops are racist, that are pushed
for example,
media,
let me show you some
through comedians and everything. If it's not about that, you're not helping.
I'd like to say something right after Danny. I saw a video on YouTube. I couldn't watch all of it because I felt sick watching it. But it was called The Talk. And it was basically black parents telling their kids about, interactions where they were, quote unquote, abused by the police without giving any context, anything. Just telling them, listen, here's what the police might do to you. They might, a police officer, if they pull you over, they're not going to just, take your ID and, check your stuff. And, there's a good chance that they are going to kill you or beat you the hell up. And then, and almost all of these kids cried out of fear, thinking that because they're black, the cops are just going to, shoot them. And this is a cultural or kill or beat them or whatnot. And this is a cultural problem that exists within the black community. They're applying
we've
1960
identified the problem. We've identified the problem. How do we solve the problem?
Yeah,
hang on a second.
Black people stop telling their kids that the cops are freaking murderers. That's it.
Stop. Let me explain why my argument is that. Because I didn't get a chance to.
Okay.
The argument is that it's not necessarily a problem just with culture or just with the media lies. Yes, those are absolutely horrendous things that need to be changed. The issue is, moreover, culture is a human construct. It is within our nature to construct these things to make the world make sense. The world makes sense in these cultures if that fact is true. If not, then nothing makes sense. Then that part of their existence doesn't make sense. And they wind up having to look elsewhere. So it's easier to do that because humans, guess what? Take the easy way to do things. It's within our nature. We as a species are lazy. So we have that problem within human nature that we teach our children lies. I'm pretty sure that all of us were taught that the tooth fairy is real, that Santa Claus was real. It's a way for us to make sense of the world. If that fundamental truth of the world is no longer true, then you essentially wind up having a major problem within your value structure. That value structure winds up having a fundamental weakness, and it winds up blowing out the rest of your values. If we change that aspect of human nature, because this is a problem across all human groups, then we have a much better opportunity at actually fixing the problem.
Can we agree that not all lies are created equal? That telling your kids about Santa Claus is not the same as telling your kids the cops will beat them to death if they're black.
Yes.
Yes. Right. Okay. So I don't want to change human nature. If you think people need stories and stuff to make sense of the world, you're probably right, and that's sensible. I don't think we need to change that. I think that the specific lies need to be changed, and at the very least, we need to stop all of popular culture.
I don't think anybody's telling their children that the police will kill you if you're black.
I'm not.
Wait, what? Yes, lots of.
I've met people who were told that they would.
I grew up in those neighborhoods, man. I'm telling you, that shit doesn't happen.
I have friends that get that talk from their parents when they're very young.
I'm just going to have to believe them over you, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm sure they grew up in the same shithole I did. Yeah, not some nice white neighborhood where, never mind.
Wait, what are you talking about? You're saying the nice white neighborhoods are the ones where they tell their kids that cops will kill them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in the black neighborhoods, they tell you to tell the cops to fuck themselves.
That's not good either.
Like,
I don't think you're right. Even if that's true, that's terrible also.
I've lived in a predominantly white neighborhood my entire life. I've never once heard or seen anyone tell a cop to go fuck themselves.
No, in the neighborhood I grew up in, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone.
Have you had enough?
That's what they tell you.
I don't know.
That's what they tell you. Tell the cops. Just leave me alone.
I think
walk away.
Citizen now.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Texas.
In any case, we kind of did you notice that when I said "so white lives matter," that the response was, "Well, we don't want to be called white supremacists." That was the response. We all remember that, right?
Oh, I noticed that, and that's a problem.
Yeah, but it's also not. It's not just being called that though. When they do that, like your life gets totally ruined if they slap that label on you, regardless of if you are or not.
Your life gets ruined if you're called a racist.
Yeah,
I've been called a racist about 70,000 times online.
And then you can have.
That's a bit far-fetched.
It depends who calls you racist
and attacking you and shit.
If Tariq Nasheed calls you racist, no one's gonna believe him.
Right, but if your coworker
Obama calls you racist, maybe everyone will believe him.
No, I'm saying if your coworker calls you racist, then they could get you fired.
I had an Omni Destiny fan call my work and say that I was a terrible racist.
But that's your work, right? That's your work. There's other workplaces who are totally overwhelmed by this liberal regressive crap.
Here's a secret that I don't think anyone on our side of the YouTube has even tried to do. Have you ever been told your boss to put you on a list for your work, that if anyone tries to call up here or call the police about you, that they should not take it seriously, and then tell them why they shouldn't? Has anyone tried that, or do they just
some employers would do that?
Just don't worry about it. What actually happens, and then they just complain about it because I got fired because I was being stupid on the internet and didn't tell my employer. That's what it is.
You shouldn't have to.
Why shouldn't you have to?
Your private life.
If you know that somebody's going to try and do that, then what in the fuck are you even doing?
But, what I'm saying is those employers that I mentioned earlier, though. Hold on one sec, please. Hold on one second, please.
Do you put smoke alarms in your house?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I'm required.
Because it's a preventative measure. Is that why?
Yeah.
No, just like telling your employer that people might come after you from the internet. Is it a preventative measure for you not to be fired?
No, but here's the thing that I'm saying. The employers that I mentioned before, the regressive liberal
the things that you care about, Chair.
Hold on, the regressive liberal ones.
You gotta spit it out quick, or you're gonna get interrupted.
Please. The regressive liberal employers that I was referring to earlier, the ones who might believe these idiots calling in and saying that you're a racist, they're not gonna put you on some list. They're not gonna have some list to say these people can't call you and say stuff about you, because you going to that particular employer and saying, "Hey, I do this on the internet. This person might not like it." They might fire you then and there.
I'm not telling you to say what your political beliefs are. Here's what I told my employer, because my employer is a liberal employer and they hire mostly women for their positions, and they're very extremely liberal women. I went up to my boss and I said the following: "Hey, so-and-so, I have somebody online who I was about to have a discussion with. They are absolutely known for doxing and spreading people's information, as well as trying to get them fired from their job. Is there any way that you could put me on a list for me not to be fired from here? Because I really like working at this job. I don't want to get my personal life mixed up with my business life. Can you please try to put me on a list?" And what did they say to that? I got put on a list. Destiny, one of Omni Destiny's fans tried to call up there, and guess what happened? They hung up on him as soon as they said my name.
But your employer's not a dickhead. But let's say your employer is somebody that goes along with the shit that Omni that.
Okay, how many people do you actually think are on the regressive left that are business owners or employers?
Not a lot.
Very much want to see the statistics on that.
That's funny. That's funny.
But there's people who are so afraid of that side of things.
Anyway, guys,
ladies
and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and call a conclusion to our discussion about police, because we've gotten so far off the subject. I don't think we can stay on it anymore. But we're going to keep the discussion going. If you'd like to follow us, I'm going to have Chair View set up another stream. We're going to keep it going further on the Academy, and we're going to call it BrainTrust Afterthoughts. Okay? Chair, you want to set it up for us? And we'll get it going. Anyway,
thanks, guys.
Thank you guys.